Well, you guys, I did promise you a longer article about this, and I will be watching on Netflix and giving you a review of how this documentary went. This is a particularly longer article, so I figured I'd just do a Newsy Nugget because it's awkward, it's weird, and I get to say poo, which, why not? The Poo Cruise, a true story of what happened on the Carnival Triumph when the toilets stopped working. They have lifeboats. I'm out of there. That being said, they probably don't let just random people take lifeboats because that's a hard no. Just sit right back and you'll hear the tale of a fateful ship. But also make sure there's a working toilet nearby because this tale may gross you out. On February 7th, 2013, the Carnival Triumph set off in Galveston, Texas for what was supposed to be a 4-day pleasure cruise to Cozumel, Mexico and back. See, I mean, Gilligan's Island never had backed up toilets. I think they used a coconut and, like, I don't know, palm leaves, and the professor made, a working bidet. That being said, if you're going to get stuck on an island, have, someone like a lessee there with you. Because if it were left to me, we probably would have all starved, confused, and lost on an island. That being said, this is why you make sure there's a professor. But instead, the voyage turned into an 8-day nightmare for 4,229 passengers and crew members after a fire took out the boat's power. That meant no hot meals, no air conditioning, and most disastrously, no functioning toilets. Now, Netflix Trainwreck Poop Cruise revisited that stunning moment in time, with passengers and staffers who lived through it recounting just how grody it was. I mean, half jokingly, I said we should do number one in the shower, Triumph Cruise director Jen Baxter said in the episode, recalling the conundrum they faced when they found out the toilets weren't flushing. Then for number two, well, that's definitely a trickier problem than number one. Yeah, number one, I think we could figure it out. We are near the ocean. There are bottles and such. That being said, that's grody, but you do what you do. She did, however, come up with a solution. What the F? Ashley, who was on board with besties Kaylin and Jamie for her bachelorette party, said in the documentary, recalling her reaction to hearing that the crew would be distributing bags to use if nature called, and chose option two. Poo bags. Again, there are lifeboats. I'm taking one of these and we're going back to Texas. I'd start a mutiny. Now, Devin Marble, who bonded with his fiance's family on that trip more than he could have ever imagined, recalled his reaction as well to, "You want me to do what?" What transpired during that unexpectedly explosive excursion ended up being the perfect storm of harrowing, bizarre, and because of the poo, a little hilarious. With The Daily Show, Conan, and Saturday Night Live, and many more offering up hot takes. But while those who participated in the documentary can laugh, swear, and tear up about it now, the ordeal was no joke. This is what happened on the Poo Cruise. What was the cruise that, got the unfortunate moniker the Poop Cruise? Well, on February 10th, 2023, what was supposed to be the final day of a 4-day journey, the Carnival Triumph was on its way back from Cozumel, Mexico to Galveston, Texas, carrying 3,143 passengers and 1,086 crew members. Then a fire broke out in the engine room shortly before 5:30 a.m. An automatic system quickly extinguished the blaze and no injuries were reported, but by 6:15 a.m. passengers were awakened by an emergency siren and encouraged to go back to bed or have breakfast. But as detailed in Netflix documentary series Trainwreck Poop Cruise, then the power also cut out. Everything's out, from little things like making a cup of tea or a piece of toast to the whole propulsion, engines of the ship. Cruise director Jen Baxter said in the episode, "Technically, we were just floating dead in the water." Emergency lights came on, and at least people could hang out on the deck to make up for the lack of AC. But as Jen recalled, then someone realized that the toilets weren't working. Again, I hate to be the voice of reason because I'm generally not, but there are lifeboats and, we can go find someone. Do not make me poo in a bag. Like again, as I said, I would be tempted to start a mutiny in Minecraft, take one of the lifeboats and haul ass to Galveston. Not gonna lie. That being said, that I have never been on a cruise, so I am sure that me, jibber jabbing about it is more difficult to get, for one to get a, lifeboat out, and steer it. And Lord knows I have no directional help, so we'd end up in Alaska. I don't think they have enough gas for that, but let's continue because it's just aching me out. But it's pretty funny, and I do want to watch the documentary and review it for you. Now, once it was deemed safe to enter the engine room where the fire had been, crew members found that the flames had destroyed the ship's main power cables. Therefore, Jen said there was no hope of getting power back on. I mean, he's smiling now, but at the time I would have been just not so great. Half joking, I said we could, number one in the shower, Jen said in the documentary. So it was, oh yeah, that sounds good. If it's number one, shower it is. But for the number two, she added, that was definitely a trickier problem than number one. Now, the immediate solution was to deliver red biohazard bags to everyone on board, Jen detailed, and passengers were instructed to drop them off in bins in the corridor, once they were full of nature's little presents. You want me to what? Triumph passenger Devin Marble remembered thinking at the time. Recalled Abdi, a chef on the Triumph, I never thought in my weirdest dreams I would see a day when I had to, number two in a red bag. Yeah, no, look, Triumph would still owe me money. I hold a grudge. Luck be in luck. This would have been my first cruise without children and I get stuck on a poo cruise. I mean, I'm glad everyone made it out and no one was injured, but daggone, the amount you spend on a cruise and trying to, relax and this happens. That first night, passengers dragged their mattress out to the deck to sleep because it was too hot to sleep in the unair-conditioned cabins inside. The following day, February 11th, Abi said that the kitchen staff threw away all the perishable food and started making sandwiches for 3,000 people. In the documentary, Triumph bartender Hannah, who was born in what was then the Soviet Union, recalled seeing the crush to grab for food and thinking, now all these Americans somehow can feel what it is in a dictatorship country where ish like this happens and it doesn't surprise anyone. The power outage also knocked out the Wi-Fi and cell service, so when a sister ship, the Carnival Legend, showed up to deliver food supplies, passengers rushed up to the deck with their phones in an effort to catch a signal from the other boat. We are addicted to our phones, aren't we? Now, Caitlin, who was part of a bachelorette party on board, said in the Netflix documentary that even just going, number one in the shower was an ordeal. She described removing the beacon from her life jacket, pouring soda over it to trigger the emergency light, which produced a strobe-like effect in the dark bathroom. Now, Devin, who was on the trip with his fiance's family, had primarily been concerned about getting along with his future father-in-law, and he was determined not to use a red bag, calling it not the time to go to the bathroom in a trash can. He vowed at the time, I'm going to make it. But 2 days into the crisis, he said, he didn't make. I feel like, Red in Shawshank, like, I'd like to tell you that the, sisters didn't get Andy, but this is Shawshank, not a fairy tale. And I'm over here like, I'd like to tell you that his digestive system worked out, but apparently pooing in front of your father-in-law is it just is what it is. Again, when you're in a situation like this, it just, stuff happens. He heard a rumor, however, that there were some working toilets somewhere, so he started to scour the ship. And this is the chef that we've been talking about. And again, my apologies, sir. I have probably terribly screwed up your name. It is not out of disrespect. It is out of the fact that I never learned hooked on phonics, and I'm slightly dyslexic. So the fact that I can even read and remember my ABCs is, a stellar point some days. It is a miracle. Ashley, the bride-to-be who was preparing her bachelorette with Kaylin and pal Jamie, explained that by the afternoon of February 11th, day 2 of the power outage, number 1 was also becoming a problem because it wasn't draining from the showers anymore. It was simply sitting there with nowhere else to go. Passengers, of course, were still apparently using toilets. I found this public restroom and I went inside, Chef Abis recalled. It was the most nastiest thing I've ever seen in my life. People were covering the leavings with toilet paper and then adding a fresh layer of... So it was... Oh, don't ruin lasagna for me. He said it was layered like lasagna, and now I'm glad that we're having biscuits and gravy for dinner. Again, I will put a warning on this. This is probably not safe for work, and possibly if you're eating. Jen, Abby, and other staffers recalled in the documentary that someone had the great idea to reopen the bar for free drinks. You do realize that drinking is going to make you pee-pee more, and people don't need to be, less inhibited in a crisis. Now, Jen said she was against the decision and predicted, per her recollection, that people would go nuts. Soon enough, they were peeing off the side of the trip. Triumph Guest Services Manager Steven said, well, Habib said he witnessed people throwing poop bags into lifeboats. Okay, come on, we're all adults. Why do you... See, it's people like this that ruin everything. Again, it's that classic, do you put the cart back in the slot, or are you just leaving it in, the parking lot like the rest of us a-holes owe you putting it away? That is a big pet peeve for me. I know some people, it's a little thing. I know it's a little bugbear. It shouldn't bother me. But if you leave your cart out, it is extraordinarily disrespectful to me. That being said, I'm sure I do stuff I'm not realizing that, is inconveniencing or not so nice to other people, and we all have room for growth. At first, as detailed in Poop Cruise by Carnival PR representative Buck Banks, the move was to release a short holding statement to the media explaining the ship was without propulsion, but the crew was working to fix it. Now, I'm not a geniusologist, but if you have a sister ship that's dropping off food, can't they take some of the passengers, at least elderly, maybe immunocompromised, people that, again, are going to be in trouble if they stay in basic open sewage? I mean, I know it would probably be crowded on the sister ship, and I'm sure there are all sorts of boatology reasons you don't do this, but it does seem a little redonkulous that they just didn't send, an empty ship to get them, instead left people there. That being said, I'm sure there are a ton of moving pieces and logistics and all the other jazz, so I'm sure I'm looking at it through ignorance of how much it actually takes to do that. That being said, PR is going to look really bad if you leave these people floating. They are going to make a documentary about your poop cruise. So maybe next time, just get a different boat out there, if you have one, or rent a boat. Hell, we evacuated Dunkirk with a bunch of, merchant marines. I say, if you have a poop cruise, get, day cruisers out there. Now, in that initial release, there was no mention of the toilets not working in the February 10th statement. The following morning, Carnival CEO Gary Cahill said in a statement, all our guests are safe and we're doing everything we can to make them as comfortable as possible. We are terribly sorry for the inconvenience, discomfort, and frustration our guests are feeling. But by February 11th, real news was starting to trickle out. Family members of people on board started calling news outlets, including CNN, as remembered in the show by former anchor Brooke Baldwin. Once they got wind of what was really going on, she noted, that's when we started saying, that's a story. Now, CNN's enthusiastic deep dive into the Poop Cruise went on to become its own story. But the coverage delivered a ratings boost for the network all the same. Well, doggone it, if it's good for CNN, why don't we glamorize this instead of helping people? CNN, when the first of two rescue tugboats reached the Triumph on February 11th and started to tow it, suddenly the weather turned for the worst, Jen said in the documentary. And then she thought, holy ish, no, like literally. because as Devon recalled, the angle of the ship had adjusted, tilting everything to the side, and, pipes and their cup and sewer runneth over. Larry Porut, who was on the cruise with his daughter, Rebecca, said in the Netflix show everything overflowed onto the floor and kept overflowing. Devon added, you're standing in, well, you know. Toby Barlow, whose wife Ann Barlow was on board the Triumph, told CNN at the time she had managed to text him and relay that there was sewage running down the walls and floors. Now, a tent city sprang up on board as passengers used bed sheets and lounge chairs to make individual shelters for their own group on deck, and some people started a prayer group. Devon noted he started to feel like a prisoner. You are locked in a basically floating sewage, thing. Now, a tugboat from Progreso, Mexico was supposed to meet the Triumph at noon on February 11th and tow them the rest of the way to Texas, guest services manager Stefan said in the Netflix show. We evaluated a wide range of options, including using another ship to transport guests, but the safest solution was towing the ship back to port, Carnival said on his Facebook page at the time, per CNN. We have a huge team involving multiple departments working around the clock to get our guests home as quickly as possible, to get them a shower and bleach and Purell. Like, I would still be covering myself with Purell today, like on a semi-regular basis if I was there. I'd be like, ugh. Like a passing fart would probably trigger me to cover myself with Purell. Now, at 12:17 p.m., however, Stephen got a call that the plan had changed and the Triumph had drifted more than 100 nautical miles, and now they were nowhere near Mexico. It was going to take 2 or 3 days to tow the 14-story, 900-foot-long Triumph to Mobile, Alabama. Given the strength of the currents, Carnival noted on Facebook, it's preferable to head north to Mobile rather than to attempt to tow against them. More days of Pooh Creek, I am stealing every single thing off that thing. Robe, towels, I mean, unless they're covered in stuff. The baby soaps, the coffee maker. Like, y'all owe me big time if you made me sit in that stuff. Now, as they got closer to Mobile on February 14th, Jen said in the documentary that people just wanted to go home, get a hot shower, and a nice bed. Now, Carnival told CNN at the time that all Triumph passengers would be fully refunded, flown home at no cost to them, and reimbursed for all their expenses, minus casino and gift shop purchases from this excursion. They were also going to be given a credit to put forward a future trip. You have got to be kidding me. I'm never cruising with you again, Triumph. Like, Carnival is a no-go. Buck, the Carnival PR representative, recalled in the documentary that he still anticipated a complete media bloodbath. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, there is no way to make this look good in PR, especially with all the hiccups and snafus. Again, I realize that there are logistical things that I am probably unaware and ignorant of, but the fact that another ship wasn't called in and you left people in basically raw sewage, I mean, that would be a media bloodbath. I'm shocked that they have made a rebound and Carnival still exists. But he said, far and away, we were shocked and relieved that so many of them credited the Carnival crew members with superhuman effort. That was hardly the end of it, but at first disembarking, passengers were just thrilled to be home. I'll never take a private bathroom for granted again, Kaylin said in the Netflix show. Ashley later presented her bridesmaids with gifts in red biohazard bags. Rebecca told the news crew at the time, I feel stronger than ever before. And her dad, Larry, reflected in the documentary that the trip proved how we can get through things together, good or bad. Meanwhile, Devon and his father-in-law remain travel buddies to this day, which is kind of sweet. I mean, once you poo in front of someone, I guess you're bestest friends or you never speak again. I think it's kind of on a very bell curve, like there is no middle. There's just the two endpoints. There's no curve. You've got a 50-50 chance. All that triumph of the human spirit aside, a number of lawsuits were filed in the aftermath of the cruise. Quote, this was something totally preventable, so we had a good chance, maritime attorney Frank Spagnoletti, and rest in peace, Jeff, Legal Vices. I'm sure he covered this case in Maritime Mondays, and, he is missed. He did represent some of the plaintiffs and reach settlements in those cases, as told in the documentary. The problem is you run into the ticket. The cruise line indeed pushed back, maintaining that the tickets were purchased and passengers agreed to the terms of their ticket contract, which absolved the company of a wide variety of liability. But Carnival did ultimately change its terms and conditions and said it committed to safety improvements after the Triumph debacle. Quote, the Carnival Triumph incident over 12 years ago was a teachable moment for the entire cruise industry, the company said in a cover your ass statement in response to the Netflix documentary. A thorough investigation following the incident revealed a design vulnerability, which was corrected and led Carnival Cruise Line to invest more than $500 million across our entire fleet in comprehensive fire prevention and suppression, improved redundancy, and enhanced management systems, all in support of our commitment to a robust safety standard. They continued, this is in addition to our vigorous health, environmental, safety, security, HESS protocols that guide the entire Carnival Corporation fleet as we maintain our commitment to industry leadership in this area. Again, the fact that this business is still running, and whatever legal genius decided that when you purchase a ticket, you absolve Carnival of a myriad of things is a daggone legal genius. Not for the passengers, but for the company, because can you imagine if they didn't have that? I mean, again, possibly the reason Carnival is still a thing. Now, Carnival spent nearly $115 million to clean, repair, and refit the Triumph, according to the documentary. In 2019, it was rechristened the Carnival Sunrise, I guess because used to be covered in poo isn't very inviting. And it primarily sails out of Miami to the Bahamas and other parts of the Caribbean. So there you go. The poo cruise rises again. This was a bit of a longer, article, but I wanted to read it before I watched the documentary. I can only imagine how harrowing it was, and appreciation to the staff who was on the boat. There's always the higher ups that are in offices that are doing, the protocol and standards and, all the sort of standard operating procedures, but they're usually never people that have been in the trenches out there doing things. So, for all of the guests to say that the crew did a superhuman job is amazing. Again, doing things, making it work, and trying to provide comfort and hospitality and a bit of a calm in the storm as much as you could is really great. And it'll be interesting to see how the documentary portrays things. Uh, you know, it makes me not want to do a cruise, if I'm honest. So I will be putting a warning on this because this is definitely not safe for work or lunchtime. But it is one of the longer stories that I wanted to get out there to you guys. And it's it's a poo cruise. Honestly, it's one of the odder things I've seen today. So there you go. I will be watching the documentary probably this week and giving you guys a review on it, and then maybe breaking down some of the other true crime things going on Netflix. I just need 24 more hours in the day. But as always, thank you for sharing your time with me. And remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but have a sassy mouth and carry a can of bitch fire because you never know when you might have to, well, stake out your own place on, number 2, the cruise. Anyway, I hope I didn't disturb your lunch. I know this is going to be a little bit of an offbeat one, and I will put a warning in. Bye, you guys.